They say Libra is soft, indecisive, too nice for this brutal world, but that's because they don't see what happens after the fall. Libra doesn't just survive, it rebuilds. With elegance, with precision, with fire cloaked in silk. Every time life breaks, the balance, Libra returns sharper, calmer, and stronger. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why. Not just as astrology, but as a secret about how balance becomes power and how beauty becomes a weapon for the soul. Watch closely. This is not what you think Libra is. This is what Libra remembers. There is a place in the soul where silence speaks louder than thunder, where stillness is not weakness, but the poised breath before divine judgment. That is where Libra is born, not from chaos, not from flame, but from the mirror held between opposites. The scales, the only sign in the zodiac that is not beast or man, but symbol, object, ideal. It is the soul's longing for justice, carved into the stars. In ancient Egypt, the goddess Ma'at stood at the threshold between life and afterlife, weighing the hearts of the dead against a feather. That is Libra's origin, not in noise but in measure, not in conquest but in calibration. Libra does not charge blindly forward. It listens, it assesses, it waits not out of fear but out of reverence for the unseen laws that hold the cosmos together. Libra's power begins where others falter, in the pause, in the inhale, before decision. While the world races toward extremes, Libra walks the narrow bridge between. It does not shout its strength. It embodies it in the way light falls evenly across a room, in the way a single word can disarm a war. But don't mistake this grace for passivity. The scale is not just an instrument, it is a judge, a reckoning. Injustice, even subtle registers, in Libra's bones, like static. This is not a sign that avoids conflict. It transforms it. It listens not to win, but to understand. And in that understanding, it disarms, not with the blade, but with the mirror, by showing you your own reflection clearly, beautifully, sometimes painfully. Libra walks into the world as a living question. What is fair? What is true? What is beautiful, and just not only for you, but for all, and every experience, every heartbreak, every betrayal becomes a data point in that divine calculation. Even when shattered, Libra begins to reassemble not only itself, but the balance around it, and in doing so, it becomes stronger not by building walls, but by restoring bridges. The Garden of Eden is often spoken of as a myth of innocence lost. But to Libra, it is the first courtroom, the first moment when choice met consequence, when duality began. Libra lives in that garden, still not in exile, but as its quiet caretaker, keeping watch over the lines. We cross the agreements, we break the harmony, we forget. And every time those lines are erased by pain or betrayal, Libra redraws them, not the same but wiser. This is why Libra returns stronger. Because Libra is not trying to win. Libra is trying to restore, to realign the world to something holy, something ancient, something most have forgotten, but all long for. And it begins in the soul's mirror, where justice, beauty, and truth are not separate, but one. Venus does not always wear roses. Sometimes she wears a robe and holds a gavel. And in Libra, her love is law. Many believe Venus rules through pleasure, through romance and indulgence. But Libra is not Taurus. Here Venus wears a different face, one of intellect, diplomacy, and sacred geometry. In Libra, Venus becomes the architect of beauty, not just the muse. She designs cathedrals out of conversations. She smooths the edges of rage into reason. She turns chaos into composition, emotion into artful truth. This is not the Venus of wine and velvet. This is the Venus who steps into a fractured room and recalibrates the very air. Her gift is not seduction, it is clarity. She knows that real beauty comes from balance. That harmony is not the absence of conflict, but the alchemy of opposites. She teaches Libra that healing isn't about erasing pain, it's about creating space where pain and peace can sit at the same table. Libra's strength flows from this discipline, for beneath the gracious tone and soft features lies an incredible internal structure, like the invisible girders of a suspension bridge, holding immense weight with seemingly effortless grace. Libra can carry a room full of tension without showing a crack. They can absorb projections, arguments, even cruelty, and still return with questions instead of accusations, not to please, but to understand. Because understanding is the first step to equilibrium, and equilibrium is power. When Venus in Libra looks at you, she's not asking for approval. She's measuring your symmetry. Are your words aligned with your heart? Do your actions match your ideals? If they don't, she will know. She may not confront you in fire, but she will withdraw her light. And when that light leaves, you'll feel it, the loss of aesthetic integrity, of emotional coherence, of the unspoken beauty that Libra brings into every space. Venus in Libra is also the guardian of social justice. This is where elegance meets ethics, where refinement becomes revolution. The same hand that writes poetry writes policy. The same eye that arranges flowers in perfect proportion sees the imbalances in society and aches to fix them. Think of Eleanor Roosevelt, a Libra, whose refinement cloaked relentless advocacy. She did not yell. She reshaped the room until voices once silenced were heard. In every Libra, there is that impulse to refine the world, not just aesthetically but morally. They want to live in a world that is fair, that is beautiful, and they will not rest until that vision is at least partially real. And when they fall, when they are betrayed or broken, it is this vision that saves them, not revenge, not self-pity, but the quiet vow to restore the order, to bring something back into alignment. This is Venus, at her most powerful, not draped in luxury, but seated in a court of light. She teaches Libra that peace is not the absence of pain. It is the result of sacred work, and that work never stops, which is why Libra never truly falls. They recalibrate. They rise again, stronger, sharper, more serene, a living testament that beauty is not skin deep, it is soul deep, and it holds the universe together. The element is air, but not the wild wind of Gemini, nor the thunderstorm of Aquarius. Libra's air is the invisible current that moves through a cathedral, still weightless, yet impossibly structured. It is the breath you hold before you speak your truth, the hush before a verdict, the silence that carries meaning deeper than words. And yet this still air carries burdens few can see. Because Libra doesn't just breathe, Libra mediates between people, between principles, between the inner voice and the outer world. While others demand or escape, Libra listens. And listening, truly, listening is heavy. It requires a suspension of ego, a discipline of poise. This is the unseen weight Libra carries, the emotional labor of maintaining balance in a world obsessed with tipping scales. Everyone comes to Libra for clarity, for advice, for peace. And Libra gives it often instinctively, almost reflexively, because it feels when something is off. When two energies clash, when a conversation veers toward harm, when a room tenses beneath the surface. This is more than sensitivity. It's atmospheric intuition. The same way a barometer senses pressure, Libra senses emotional weather and quietly begins to stabilize it. But in stabilizing others, Libra can lose itself. That's the paradox. The soul that sees everyone's side may forget its own. The peacekeeper may silence its pain. And over time, that silence grows heavy, like fog that never lifts. Because what happens when the one who holds the balance breaks? Libra learns eventually that balance does not mean self-erasure. That to keep harmony externally, one must first have justice within. And this is where Libra begins its transformation. It stops negotiating its truth. It stops absorbing what it cannot heal. It stops bleeding for the comfort of others. And when that happens, when Libra reclaims the air it gave away, its strength becomes unshakable. Because this is the secret of Libra's element. Air cannot be held. It flows. It moves. It carries. and yet it cannot be destroyed. Libra is not fragile, it is flexible. It bends, but does not break. It absorbs, analyzes, adapts, and when knocked down it lifts itself with the same grace it once gave away. This is why Libra comes back stronger. Because every time it's taken for granted, it remembers its worth. Every time it's silenced, it rediscovers its voice. Every time it gives too much, it learns the sacred art of boundaries. And unlike fire, which burns bridges, or water which floods emotion, Libra's air re-enters the room with clarity. Clear eyes, clear heart, clear intent. This is the moment when Libra becomes unstoppable, when it no longer needs everyone to agree, when it no longer sacrifices truth for peace, when it realizes that peace without truth is not harmony, it is prison. And so Libra lifts the veil. It speaks, it chooses, not impulsively, but decisively, because when Libra finally acts, it has considered every angle, weighed every cost, and chosen not the easiest path, but the right one. That choice may come late, but when it comes, it is irrevocable. This is the strength of Libra's air, quiet, calculated, unseen, but capable of changing the entire atmosphere. A broken scale does not mean failure. It means recalibration. It means something no longer aligns, and the soul must adjust, must reweigh the world, must rediscover its center. For Libra, this is not a sign of defeat. It is the very process of transformation. When Libra falls, it often does so in silence, not with drama, but with quiet confusion. How did the balance tip? Why did peace slip through their hands? There is a sacred ache in Libra's heart when harmony breaks, a sense that something precious has been desecrated. But unlike fire signs, who rage, or water signs, who drown in feeling, Libra dissects the moment like a philosopher. They seek meaning. They search for what went wrong, not just externally, but within themselves. And this is where the resurrection begins. Because Libra's gift is not in avoiding the fall, it's in rising with discernment. When betrayed, Libra doesn't rush to revenge. They trace the fracture line. They remember every word, every silence, every compromise that was too costly. They don't forget. But they also don't retaliate. They refine. The next time they will not tip the scale in someone else's favor at the cost of their own. The next time they will not confuse keeping peace with abandoning self. Libra learns that fairness must begin at home, that self-sacrifice in the name of love, when repeated, becomes self-neglect. And when they finally see this pattern, something ancient awakens the inner judge. The part of them that once weighed the hearts of others now turns inward and says, "You too deserve balance. You too deserve truth." That voice is not angry. It is clear. It speaks with the tone of Ma'at, of justice herself, not in punishment, but in alignment. Libra begins to speak, not to appease, but to declare. They say no softly but with finality. They leave gently but without apology. They detach not out of coldness, but out of clarity. They realize that sometimes the most beautiful thing you can do is walk away with grace. This is how Libra comes back stronger, not louder, not harsher, cleaner. They become surgical with their choices, intentional with their energy, selective with their trust. And in this they do not lose their empathy, they hone it. Because true empathy is not absorbing everyone's pain. It is knowing where your responsibility ends and where someone else's journey begins. Libra no longer tries to carry what is not theirs. They no longer confuse love with endurance or fairness with silence. They become the scale rebalanced, forged in experience, calibrated by wisdom. This rebirth is not visible to the untrained eye. From the outside, Libra may still seem kind, composed, even gentle. But inside, a shift has occurred. The center has been reset. And from that new center, Libra moves with quiet force. Every action is now aligned. Every word is now chosen. Every step is now sovereign. Because the truth is, the scale was never broken. It was overloaded. And when Libra finally sets down what was never theirs to carry, they rise. And they do not waver again. Throughout history, Libra has worn many faces, not always soft, not always smiling, but always intentional. Because beneath the surface of charm lies a sacred strategist, and the world remembers them not just for their beauty, but for how they used it to bend reality toward justice, toward truth, toward elegance in the face of cruelty. Oscar Wilde was a Libra. His wit wasn't just entertainment, it was rebellion laced in silk. He pierced hypocrisy with laughter. He stood for beauty in a world that punished difference. And when that world tried to destroy him, he answered not with rage, but with poetry. He fell, yes, but he never abandoned the aesthetic soul that made him whole. He died exiled, not erased. Because grace, when wielded by the brave, outlives disgrace. Eleanor Roosevelt too bore the Libra seal. Her words, soft-spoken, rewrote the possibilities of human rights. She redefined the First Lady, not as an ornament, but as an advocate. She didn't shout, but she did not yield. Her diplomacy held weight. Her empathy carved policy. And her legacy reminds us that power and compassion need not be opposites. They can, in fact, require each other. Mahatma Gandhi, though born under Libra's sun in Vedic astrology, lived the archetype in full. His weapon was nonviolence. His strategy was equilibrium. He stood barefoot before empires and asked, "What is just?" He taught the world that peace, when persistent, is stronger than oppression. And that silence, when anchored in principle, can roar louder than any gun. These are the Libran legends, but they are not myth. They are proof. Proof that this energy, when embodied, is not passive, it is precise. Not weak, but refined. Libra is the sculptor of society's ethics, the one who walks through shattered rooms and begins arranging the debris into meaning. And it isn't only the famous who do this. The Libra archetype lives in the friend who mediates the unspoken war between siblings, in the teacher who sees both the loud child and the quiet one, and balances their needs without favoritism, in the artist who paints the truth in ways that bypass the mind and reach the soul. Libra lives in every person who chooses conversation over chaos, fairness over pride, and boundaries over burnout. But what makes them unshakable, what ensures they always come back stronger, is that their power was never rooted in dominance. It was rooted in equilibrium. And equilibrium can't be stolen. It can only be temporarily forgotten. When Libra remembers their power, they do not reinvent themselves. They realign themselves. And when they do, the world around them shifts, like a room that exhales when someone finally says what everyone else was too afraid to admit. This is how elegance becomes endurance, how diplomacy becomes rebellion, how charm becomes a kind of spiritual resilience. Because in every fall, Libra maps the pattern. In every return, Libra refines the blueprint. And every time they rise not to be adored, but to restore the invisible architecture of what should be. They are not here to win battles. They are here to restore the balance. What kind of soul walks through fire and still wears light? Libra's grace isn't how they avoid the fire, it's how they carry it. When the world forgets how to be fair, when truth is silenced and love turns transactional, Libra may fall, but they do not stay fallen. They return not hardened, but clarified, not armored, but refined. They confront without rage, speak truth without cruelty, and their presence unsettles precisely because it is so composed. In their evolution, Libra stops performing perfection. They begin embodying alignment, no longer consumed with pleasing everyone they choose. What is sacred truth, justice, coherence? Balance becomes not a state, but a practice, a constant recalibration between extremes, between love and loss, silence and speech, self and other. And this is why Libra becomes unshakable, because when life's scales tilt, they do not collapse, they adjust. They become the balance the world forgot, and that quiet act of recentering changes everything. Libra reminds us what dignity feels like, what justice sounds like when whispered, not shouted, what love looks like with boundaries. In the end, Libra doesn't conquer, they return. With poise, with vision, with the sacred defiance to say, I will not be distorted by imbalance, I will become its answer. This is why Libra always comes back stronger, because Libra remembers what the world was meant to be and becomes it.